when generative AI started showing up, I was probably one of the bigger skeptics out there. I said, it's just a toy. Last year, my CTO said, hey, I want to show you something I was doing with ChatGPT in this particular case. When he was demoing it, he said, I had spent hours writing the scripts to clean the data, to augment the data with information from the public internet, things like that. And in 10 minutes with the right prompt, he had the exact same output.
And I went to them about a month ago and I was like, we're using this tool. We're using this tool. It's called DocSpot. And interestingly, had a healthy to large amount of skepticism and resistance from the team in using it. But a couple of things have happened since we implemented it. One, our support docs are better. The other part of it though is we talk about if you have an existing large SaaS business that is established, has customers, has revenue, is profitable, how do you think about taking a non-AI native solution and adapting it and adopting AI into the solution for your customers and for yourself as a business? I think this is the big question a lot of us are wrestling with right now as we look at the opportunity here and say, hey, I got to get in that game, but I'm not a ChatGPT wrapper. This week, I chat with Anthony Eden from DNSimple. DNSimple is a tool that helps companies and products make DNS kind of management a lot easier. He's been doing this a while, and he has really kind of grounded perspective, I think, on chasing new technologies and new trends. We talk about that a little bit, but we also talk about how he has been a convert in a bit. And he was really skeptical of AI at the beginning, like I and most of us were. And he has seen the light now and he's all in on it. And he's using AI internally for himself and his team and for their customers in some really interesting ways. And Anthony brings up some very specific considerations that we should all have as we look at the AI landscape and how it can affect us and our business and our customers. Hope you enjoy this conversation with Anthony Eden. So I think like the place I want to start is like you and I both run businesses that are not AI native. And I don't know about you, but I have an enormous amount of FOMO right now, seeing all these, Cursor and Windsurfer and all these wrapper companies who are taking advantage of the rising tide like we saw for a while, like in COVID, especially like the second coming of podcasting, we saw enormous growth, basically did nothing for it. I feel like we're missing that right now by not being an AI native company or product. Like, you guys aren't either, right? Like you
Correct.
Guys do
DNS. Yeah,
right?
DNSimple does not have it. We're definitely not AI first.
Yeah. You've been doing this long enough, like maybe you don't get FOMO like I do, but like, do you think about that? Like, hey, how do we take advantage of this opportunity?
I mean, it's definitely come up in conversations. We have some team members at DNSimple who are far more passionate than others about it. As a business, as you mentioned, I've been doing this now for 15 years. So I kind of I try not to chase a trend and instead focus on, okay, what can we actually do for our customers or for our team or for the business with this new technology that's coming out? So as an example, with AI, we've been extremely cautious. When generative AI started showing up, I was probably one of the bigger skeptics out there. I said, it's just a toy, really. The quality is low. I'm not going to invest too much on. And I was like this for quite a while. And then last year, my CTO said, hey, I want to show you something I was doing with ChatGPT in this particular case, or Claude. I can't remember. He was doing it with one of the tools, but he was like, it was ChatGPT because it was the latest version. He's like, I write scripts to analyze data, right? Is what he's telling me. And I went through all this work to write some Ruby scripts to analyze a bunch of data. And I was thinking, I wonder if I could do this well with one of the Gen AI solutions. So he has a pro account, so it's all protected, and he was taking like this taking out data that has all the sensitive information removed, but has essentially what he wants. And he's like, all I really want to do is take this raw data and kind of mix it together and output a CSV. And he started working with it. And when he was demoing it, he said, I had spent hours writing the scripts to clean the data, to augment the data with information from the public internet, things like that. And in 10 minutes with the right prompt, he had the exact same output. And when he showed me that, that was kind of like, okay, in my opinion, we've crossed a threshold where now I can see where this is far more interesting than it was in the past. And I wouldn't say I was afraid of missing out. I said, now's the time when I can start really thinking about this, because it's reached that point where I think it's viable enough to do useful things for the customers, for the team, or for the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, so we call it Team Pink and Team Purple within Castos. We have like internal facing, like how can we use this for ourselves? That has been interesting, and I want to talk about that. And we have Team Purple, which is like customer facing product stuff, right? And everybody, we're a team of 8 people, so everybody's on both teams, but we think about them quite differently, because I think they are, right? Like it's ChatGPT, it's Claude, it's Replit, it's Cursor, whatever, for like our internal productivity. And then it's like, hey, how can we build AI into the product?
Yep.
That seems like not the right way to say it, but how can we augment our customer experience with AI?
Right.
In the product, are kind of the two camps. I like the first time it came out, I was like, this is amazing. This is going to change everything. There was definitely a trough in my excitement leading up to about 6 months ago, where I was like, this sucks. And then I think it got a lot better. We understand it a lot better, probably around the same time as your developers like going through this, like, wow, like, okay, we figured out how to use this thing. We as a world really like, and have been like quite hot on it for a while. Is most of the place you're using it internally as like for productivity, or are you all building it into the product?
So there's definitely been more use internally, I think. And a lot of it's been kind of experimentation by different team members to do different things. And what we agreed upon as a team is that the first thing we were going to do is before we really started diving into this, is we wanted to set some policies for ourselves as to how we treat data, what data is open and available for us to start working with, how we kind of want to order the work that we do. And I think we've chosen a path where we take public data is kind of the easy one, right? So augmentation of the experience around data that like stuff that we've already published or data that's out there that's public, and making that easier to use is an easy first step, I think. And so for us, that's one of the ones that we're like, okay, thumbs up, we can do this. And so we're already starting to look at how that might be something we can do. So for example, we're looking at how can we, it's probably pretty common, how can we make our support system better? So we have search on our support. And the first thing we started doing is, well, let's look at the search that we have and just make it better, general experience without AI. But in our heads, we know that we want to see if we can make it better with summarization, with generative AI. Interestingly enough, when we were starting this research, we found that no generative AI company was using generative AI on their support documentation. And we're like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And that's when we dug a little deeper. And it turns out there was actually some court cases out there about how a company had used generative AI on something, and that generative AI had a hallucination, and they had to honor that hallucination for their customers. It was like a discount that it hallucinated or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're like, okay, let's be a little cautious about this and make sure that we aren't going to be causing serious trouble with it. And I think that's the important first step, is understanding that it is getting better, but it's still a conglomeration of information that's pulled from a lot of different sources, all the different AI tools out there. It's not facts necessarily. It's the internet, and the internet can have a bunch of non-factual data. And so we have to look and say, how do we trust that we're going to be able to give this to our customers and it's not going to lead them astray, especially when it comes to something like DNS. The last thing we want to do is have them configuring their DNS incorrectly because a generative AI tool summarized it incorrectly. Yeah.
So interesting. We are going down the same path currently. We use Help Scout, search. We looked at the analytics there, adding keywords and blah, 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 blah. That's always a part of like KPIs for the support team. And I went to them about a month ago and I was like, we're using this tool. We're using this tool. It's called DocSpot, docspot.ai. It integrates with Help Scout reads all of your docs. You can feed it your whole blog and your whole website. It goes and crawls and all that kind of stuff. It has an escape hatch where you can send a message to a customer or to the customer support team. All that is good. And interestingly, had a healthy to large amount of skepticism and resistance from the team in using it. I think a lot of it was well placed, and they listen to the podcast, and this is like not a surprise,
Right?
A lot of it was well placed in saying, I don't want it to give people the wrong answers. And I'm like, I totally hear you. I don't want it to give them the wrong answers either. But a couple of things have happened since we implemented it. One, our support docs are better,
Right?
because it's trained on the support docs. So if it's giving the wrong answer, the support docs aren't clear, right?
Yeah.
Or they're not laid out in a way that the AI can and the LLM can make sense of.
Yep.
So the opportunity is improve the support docs so that the bot can understand them better and give people the answer right away. The other part of it, though, is we talk about kind of not the 80-20, but like the 95-5 of support, which is like, if we can help 80 or 95% of the people really well, really quickly, and we just can't help some people, then that's fine. And it applies to, and that's not just fine, but that's appropriate, because like you could spend 100 hours on a customer that pays you $19 a month and you're fucked. Like, you've just lost so much money, and all of these other people are suffering because of it. I look at this as like a magnification of that. Is like, if we can help 100% of the people correctly 95% of the time, and it costs $80 a month, fuck yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have the analytics to see when it messes up, so we can go through and iteratively, replace it. And now, like just now, we're the team is saying like, hey, like, I saw this area where it asked a question and it totally would have been a ticket, and it answered it, and the person didn't have to send us a ticket because of it.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think,
you're spot on there. It's helping create a better experience in certain cases, but it has to be monitored. And that's the thing. You've set up those guardrails. And I think also, you can't start from something that's broken. Like you were saying, like if you have a bad support page, not bad, but let's say the information is out of date, or it's hard to understand and parse normally, or what have you, that's going to reflect in the output. Like you can't put junk in and not expect junk out.
Yeah.
So first we have to fix that. And so that's why the first thing we were doing, we broke this project that we're working on to improve our customer support search functionality into, first, let's fix the search functionality without AI. And then we can decide if generative AI actually creates a better experience and gives the results that people are looking for, the summarization that people are looking for in a quicker way. Yeah,
100%. Okay, so I want to go back to this FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all are like us, not natively kind of AI tool. How are you as a founder? Because I think that like we have this need for the right energy as a founder. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to be mostly excited and a little nervous, all the time. How do you channel that with AI in your product, or not? Like that you're not using AI in your product?
So we're not using it yet. My feelings about it in terms of from a founder perspective, again, is all centered on three parties, right? The customer, the team, and the business. And so every time we look and think, what are we going to do next? Because we every 10 weeks, we start a new cycle of work that we're going to do. And we're always preparing in advance of that to try to figure out what is it that's interesting that we want to do. And we try to balance, let's make sure we have some things that are for the customers, some things that are for the business, and some things that are for the team. And then right now, the question is, we have an objective of the year is like, we want to deploy at least one generative AI project. And so how do we get from, we want to have these three groups we want to serve, to we have deployed one generative AI project, if that makes sense. And
one per group, or one for the whole company?
Well, minimums, our key result is one for the whole company. Really, that's customer facing though. We'd like to get to the point where we feel something that benefits our customers, because we can use it internally, and I have a feeling we will. We're taking kind of a different approach to how we deal with it internally. But externally, I think that if there's value there to be had and we don't explore it, then we're kind of doing a disservice to our customers. We want to ensure that we're exploring it in a way that's useful to them, whatever that may look like, but also in a fashion that's safe. And so every time we start planning about that, that's where I channel my excitement, right? I have I get my excitement to, okay, now here's a bunch of known problems that we could potentially solve. Are any of these a case where we might want to investigate whether generative AI can solve the problem better than us building something ourselves that's around something else to solve that same problem? I'll give you an example. One example that we've talked about, this is not on a time, we don't really generally run timelines that are public or anything like that as far as feature release. But one of the things we talked about is right now we have a means for exporting your list of domains from DNSimple as a CSV file. But we had to build the functionality to collect together the fields we wanted to export as a CSV file. And there's really no filtering, there's no searching, there's nothing like this. Wouldn't it be great if, that's how it always starts, right? Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if somebody could say, give me a report with these fields and I want to order it by this and sum up these things. That's the kind of thing that I can imagine that building that ourselves or trying to find an off-the-shelf tool that doesn't do that and 1,000 other things we don't need seems painful. Whereas potentially with generative AI, we can solve that problem, that one little problem, in a way that would get our customers there quicker and cost us a lot less to build. So that means less time, less money, and bring it out to them. So that's an example of something that we've talked about internally and said, maybe that's an interesting thing, but it opens up a can of worms. And that's where you talked about the other side of the founder, which is I have to have a bit of fear on everything that I do. Yeah. And of course, the first thing I jump to is like, how do we protect our customers' information? I don't want to risk that. And so those two get balanced out during the part of our development cycle where we talk about problems and we plan for potential solutions.
That's so interesting. So like we don't have private information really, right? Like it's a podcast, it's public. Anyone can go access it and do the stuff that we would do. So I don't know that we think about privacy. Like our current project is taking your file and generating a bunch of repurposed content. So we transcribe already. So we're going to do show notes and social posts and email, all this kind of stuff. Super straightforward. We're just going to send it to the service that we use for transcription. It's already there, right? I would have no problem sending it to Anthropic, for instance. Like we just do it and it's fine. Like we don't need our own model, all this kind of stuff. Like, would you imagine you need your own model? Are there like more secure services that like you would have to use because you have more sensitive data?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know if I doubt we'd really need our own models. I don't think so. Maybe we would need augmented models. So what they call them, RAG, basically using RAG as a way to update the results. Yeah. We definitely would have to go with a vendor or a product. Either we'd have to run something internally. That is totally legitimate. Like we might run something in our own infrastructure, or we go with a vendor in the same way that we would go with a vendor like Amazon for holding customer data, or a colo facility that's going to have physical servers. Like the fact is there's always going to be not always, but the vast majority of the time, especially with small businesses, we're going to depend on other vendors to bring things to us. And we're going to need a contractual relationship that protects the data that's going in and out. So I think this is kind of the same type of thing. What we wanted to avoid, and the very first thing we said when any of this started coming up a year and a half ago, was don't take any customer data and put it into a public facing system for querying. Like don't put it into ChatGPT's public interface. Right. Because we don't know, we can't trust what anybody's going to do with it, no matter what they say, because we don't have a contract with them. So if we move to the point where we do start dealing with customer data and we are looking to process it and to get summarizations out of these generative AI tools or other output, whatever it is, it's going to have to be with a vendor or a system that we have an agreement with, that we can trust that data is going to be protected.
Yeah.
just like any other vendor.
Sure. And I got to believe, like, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic, these companies have big, huge customers doing really sensitive data on them, and they are robust, just like AWS would be, or Microsoft Cloud, or whatever, right?
I agree with you. I have to imagine they see the potential for the risk for disclosing information for one of their customers. They must be treating that as a high priority security item. But I trust, but I verify, right? So no matter who we choose in the end, and I would say anybody who's considering integrating this has to remember that you have to verify that you have contractual agreements that this stuff will be protected, and mechanisms to ensure that if a breach happens, that it's very clear who's responsible, what's going to happen afterwards, who's going to get notified, all the things that go along with protecting customer data.
Yeah. Okay, so for you personally, right, as a founder, what are you using, and what are you excited about?
So I have used Perplexity quite a lot. I actually started switching to using Perplexity for search, and I actually really, really like it. Like it is absurd how good it's gotten at giving me good results with references. And that's the part that's super interesting. That was different than, say, when I was playing with ChatGPT. With ChatGPT originally, I was getting something, but I had no idea where the source data was coming from. And the fact that Perplexity does that and does it really well and elegantly in their interface, regardless of which device I'm on, has been really, really awesome. So I've been using that personally as a way to do research, to understand market movements, to understand things like competitor research. It's not perfect. And I think for example, it's shallow right now. I noticed that if I want to go deep, I can go deep vertically. So I can dig into information to a certain extent, about a certain topic, but I can't go deep wide. In other words, I can't get a lot of information that I then can go, oh, now I want to filter this down more. I think with some of the new products that they're releasing is, what is it called? Deep thought or something like that. Deep research. It's a new thing from those folks that make Perplexity.
Yeah.
I think that's where the next step is. Like, they'll allow you to do larger scale research. And I find that to be really interesting and fascinating. I do hope that someday we'll get to the point where we'll have true databases of facts that we can use to analyze, as opposed to the general internet. I've spoken to some of my other tech friends who have been far more interested in this, and some of the ideas was like, wow, what if we were dealing with like RDF data, like this relational data format, or where you have fact data that's proven facts that has a reference, and using that as the source data for at least some of this. And I was like, that's pretty interesting, right? So facts, I think we're still a little short on ensuring that we're getting facts and not pseudo facts.
Yeah, right. Because it's all just referencing shit that's on the internet.
Technically, and do we even really know what it's actually referencing? Because I don't know. Yeah. I know that there are some companies that are feeding data into it intentionally. So where it's not necessarily public facing data. And so I don't know. And that's part of the fear. Again, we go back to that. The fear is, what data is actually being used to show us this? Now, if you're doing research about a competitor or competitor's price, or if you're researching about a particular topic, maybe you're not as concerned. But if you're doing something where you're trying to look at, something that could have make or break decisions for your business or for your life or for health or whatever it might be, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go back to being a skeptic for a little while.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, on my phone, I have Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT. I use them for different things. I use Claude, like most people, for all of my writing, all the writing I do. We had a big product announcement today. I fed it the support docs. I said, write a blog post about this, and I kind of prepped it, and then obviously write the email to go along with the blog post. I use it for scripting my YouTube videos a lot, and creating social posts from that. I use ChatGPT for like brainstorming and as like a thought partner a lot. I don't know why I think it's better, but I do. I use Perplexity a little bit for research. But I don't use it as a substitute for Google right now. But I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, what if Google just isn't a company, right? In 5 years.
I'm pretty confident they'll still be a company. So I don't think they're.
But like 90-something% of the revenue comes from AdWords, right?
Yes. Like, I think they're obligated to change, just like they see. And of course, they're already developing their own things with Gemini and stuff like that. So they've seen the writing on the wall. They know that the expectations for people are raised now. You can't just give a list of results, right? You need to give more. You need to people want the answer. They don't want the first step to getting the answer anymore. Whether this is good or bad for us in general is still a big open question, right? I can tell you this much. This type of stuff is fantastic, but boy, does it make you lazy, right? Like, I can already feel that I am being a lot lazier when I do stuff. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. It depends on whether I take the time I save doing that to doing something that I couldn't do with that. And I think that's a lot of people are struggling now with, what does a future look like where everything is provided to us from the existing data set that we have by these generative AI tools? Do we reach a point where nothing else improves because we're depending on this? We become so lazy that we depend on it, kind of in the same way that it's easy for us to get lazy and depend on the internet rather than looking back at maybe things that aren't available on the internet, like certain old books or other things like that.
Yeah. I
don't know.
This is the AI eating AI kind of like flatline of innovation, right? Yeah, I get it. It's the same. I don't know. I mean, I worry less about that than I worry about other things. I think that you would have said the same about the typewriter and the fucking tractor and cell phones, right? Where, like, I don't remember I know my wife's cell phone number and that's it. But like, since that came out, none of us know cell phone numbers or phone numbers anymore. I don't worry about that so much. I do worry about, my kids a lot. Yeah. I think we have similar age kids. I have 12 and 14, and my son 100% has ChatGPT on his phone, and he goes to it for everything. And like, what is his ability going to be to reason the right and wrong of that? I don't know. I don't know that it's any different than he just goes to Google and reads an article and accepts that that's true. I think that's probably what happens. I do, and maybe this gets back to the fear part of like running a business. I feel like we're relatively insulated from the threat of AI as a business. Right. You probably are too.
Yes, like, I feel that we are generally, because we provide an infrastructure element that no amount of AI is going to be answering DNS packets right now,
Right. And no 19-year-old in Pakistan is going to go build DNSimple with Replit or Cursor or whatever, right? I feel the same way. I also feel like we're a relatively small problem to solve. So that's good. It's like Andrew Wilkinson's like New Zealand theory, right? Like, I'm going to be big enough to be relevant, but not so big that I'm a target for people. But I do worry most of all that like just the economy and how people spend their time and money is going to change a lot.
And maybe it's for the better. That's the other thing, because there have been some writings out about the fact that the type of work we do now in the information society, a lot of it is stuff that we probably shouldn't be doing. Like, we have a whole bunch of professions that maybe we don't need to be doing. There are certain things we absolutely need to be doing as humans. Like, if we have houses, we need people to build houses. Right now, at least, we don't have enough. The robots aren't good enough yet to do that, right? Yeah. Or basic, like the thing I look at is I look at the work that that plumbers and electricians and, like I said, builders, like folks that are out there that are doing physical work. We still need a lot of that, and that no amount of generative AI is going to help us with that right now. Like, you need a different set of things, and it's so physical. So I think that there's a lot of need still in this world. And I'm hopeful, part of me is hopeful, that we'll re-embrace some of the trades that maybe got pushed aside because we created these jobs that seemed like they were higher value, but in fact, they're not really higher value in the long run. They're just kind of a way to raise the ceiling a little bit for what we can make in terms of liquid cash or whatever. Whereas instead, we should be focusing back on some of the trades. Maybe that's a little bit of a weird way of looking at it, but that goes back to the question of like, once we have these tools, they can save us a bunch of time. What are we doing with that time that we gain? And that'll be the thing I think that your kids and my kids will be figuring out. Like they'll go, well, it doesn't take anywhere near as long to do these things that my parents did. So instead, I'm going to go figure out how to build a table, because it's more interesting, because it's something that actually is challenging, so maybe we'll see.
Yeah. So I have 2 kids. My oldest wants to be a dermatologist, and she'll be a dermatologist. She's super smart. She's super intrinsically motivated, all that kind of stuff. My youngest wants to buy BMW.
Not a
that's
BMW.
What he says.
He's like, buy
the
BMW,
whole thing.
the company.
The whole thing. Yeah.
I love it. That's bold.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck yeah, man, do it. But before he said he wanted to buy BMW, he said he wanted to be an electrician. And this is a year and a half ago. I was like, you don't want to be an electrician. He's like, no, sorry. I want to own an electrician company. I was like, you'll be way wealthier than me if you do that. How do you talk to your kids about their career? Because you have slightly older kids than me. Like they're thinking about what they want to do in college and stuff like that. How do you talk to them, and how do you want to talk to them about how they should think about their lives after college?
Yeah. So the triplets, I have triplets. They're 24 now, so they're out of college. They're beyond that. Cool. They've already started their careers, and what I've guided them to do, at least my part in it, was you need to do the thing that you believe in, the thing that you are passionate about, but you also are going to need to get some experience being in environments where you aren't necessarily going to be passionate, because that's the reality of work. It's a hard thing. And sometimes you have to do things you don't necessarily want to do that aren't motivating. And hopefully I encouraged all of them to see those things and then find ways to build businesses around that stuff that people don't want to do and make it better. So and all 3 of the grown-up ones kind of had their own directions. And at this point, they're all kind of off on their own, doing their thing. The last one, the one that's in high school, he still is, he's trying to find, he hasn't quite figured out what he wanted to do. So he spends, obviously he's a 17-year-old male. He spends a ton of time on a computer, right? Yeah. So he likes what he does on the computer, but he's very pragmatic. He's like, I don't really there's nothing that's drawing me to that I'm super passionate about this, but at the same time, I see that I can have a profession around this. So I'll probably study it. But he's been telling me recently, is like, I think I want to look into doing finance. I was like, why do you want to do finance? He's like, because I want to make money. Like all he was really thinking about is how do I get myself far enough along so that I can have the life that I want to live, because he saw us, my wife and I, working towards having the life we want to live rather than a particular money target goal or anything like that. There's never been like, oh, this is this dollar amount that we have to get to. And so I think maybe he absorbed a little bit of that because he'd rather have enough money so then he can do whatever the heck he wants with his life. Because that's what he's seen his parents do. Yeah.
I think kids of entrepreneurs come in with, and yours and mine in particular, we both lived abroad with our kids, have such unique perspectives and like lenses that they look at the world through. I mostly think it's really good. I worry sometimes that my kids basically have everything what they want, and are they growing up entitled?
I worry about the same. And the truth is, yes, they are. We are. And the only thing that I can say is that I hope that my kids, when put in a situation where they have the opportunity to stand up for those who don't have that same entitlement, that they take that opportunity, that they back that, which is a hard thing to do. But at the end of the day, I just want my kids to be happy, as I'm sure you do. And whatever path that takes, each one of them is going to be different. I'm just happy to be there and to be able to support them and see them now supporting themselves and getting on their own way. It's just, it's super awesome. Cool.
That's awesome. I make mine chop firewood because like they have to learn. No, but honestly, like I think it's the like teach someone to fish kind of thing, right? It's like at this point, like they're past the like I'm gonna drown stage, hopefully. At this point, like the biggest thing I can teach them is how to be successful. I don't care what they do, right? Like, is my daughter going to be a dermatologist? Probably. But even if she's not, she's going to rock it, you know? And my son, no idea what he's going to do. Is he going to buy a BMW? Probably not. But whatever he does, like,
never know.
I want, no, you know, he is super bullheaded. If I've done my job, no matter what he does, he'll be successful. And that's kind of the goal.
And I do, just bringing it back around to the whole generative AI thing in our kids. The one thing I can tell you is that I think all of my kids see that just as a tool at this point. Like, it's just like the internet became a tool. For them, it's not anything special. It's just another thing that they use in the same way that they use Discord, or the same way that they use, any other
Minecraft
piece of software or whatever. It's just another thing. It's just another tool, and it's going to go in their toolbox, and they maybe use it, maybe don't. They don't think about it as with such concern as we do.
But do you think that's accurate, or like, is it Bezos? He says, AI is electricity. Like, do you think it's that big of a deal?
Oh, wow. Do I believe that generative AI in the form that it is now is as important as electricity? No, I don't think so. I think that it's not as fundamental. I do think that it's going to have an impact, kind of in the way that the internet had an impact, kind of in a way that, I would say
crypto.
I don't want to say.
You can say it. It's okay.
I'm not going to say it.
It's okay.
But maybe
you're talking to a true believer here.
I'm not 100% sure. While I'm getting more bullish on generative AI, I am super bearish on crypto. Like, I am not.
Oh no!
I am not a crypto person. Not because I don't see that there's some interesting things, and there's clearly a ton of money that people have made, but a lot of it's speculative money. And I'm not a huge fan of speculative money, because I think it enriches a very small group of people for no real huge gain to humanity, right? Whereas I think the thing that's, again, if we go back to what will we do with the time that we save, generative AI has the potential to save us a bunch of time, so we don't have to do tasks that we would have otherwise invested our time in. What can we do now to move humanity forward, to further humanity, now that we have that time saved? That's the part that I think is always the most interesting question about any new technology that comes along. We have the internet. Like, how can we use the internet how have we used the internet to make our lives better? And what's the negative impact going to be? The same thing will be said for generative AI. How is it going to make our lives better? And then what's the downside to all of this as well?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think it's like a lot of things, is some people will use it to be lazy, and some people will use it to say, well, I have the autonomous robot, and I have AI, and I have the smart house. I don't have to do any of that shit anymore. Now I can go solve world hunger or fusion or whatever it is. But it'll be a divide, right? Some people use it for good. Some people use it for not being better than they are now.
No doubt. The same as any technology will be both used well and used poorly by folks. It's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I want to talk about kind of your journey as a founder to wrap up. Like, you've been doing this 15 years,
That's
you said?
Correct. Yep.
That's a long time. I've been doing it 10 years, and I feel like that's a long time. How do you feel 15 years in?
I think the biggest feeling is one of pride, of still going. It's like, I've seen a lot of folks who tried really hard to make businesses where it never really succeeded. And I've been a part of some of those businesses prior to doing DNSimple. And I'm really happy that we've been able to stick to what we believe in, even through all the ups and downs, right? It's like it's really easy as a CEO or a leader of a business to say, okay, we have to follow the next trend, otherwise we will die. Perfect example is, for me at least, was when I was walking around the Amazon reInvent last year. I was walking around, and everything is AI. There's not a single company that does not somehow have something to do with AI. And of course they are. Like, they have to. The companies that can afford to represent at an event that's that large and frankly that expensive to represent at are often chasing either the next round of funding or ensuring that their stocks are continuing to go up. And so they are going to always capitalize on the next great thing. It's part of the model. Because of how DNSimple is, because we've been a profitable business from day one, because we don't have outstanding debt. We're basically just a cash flow positive, profitable business. I don't have to chase things. And instead what I can do is I can chase the details about the stuff that my customers hurt with and say, that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on the things that our customers are really frustrated with. And we're not always going to get it right away, because we're going to have, even doing that, we still have far more things than we want to do. But as a founder, I can keep that focus because the business facilitates that, rather than having to go chase the next round of funding or ensure that the public markets aren't upset with me and watch the stocks go down 25% in a week,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I mean, we raised money, so we have had times of not being profitable. We turned that ship, which is way harder, and takes way longer and takes way more guts than I have on most days, and are profitable now. And that feels really good. I think like coming all the way back to what we talked about at the beginning, they talk about the 7-year itch with marriage. Like I've definitely had a bit of that. I've had a bit of that. Like, I've been doing this for a while. Like, we're not growing massively. It's not massively profitable. I've had gosh, is this like the thing I want to do for the next 20 years? Because I'm 44. Like, I'm not going to stop working ever, right? Like, is this what I'm going to do for forever? And I don't have an answer for that. Like, to be honest, like I don't have an answer for it. I started doing some coaching last year. I'm advising some of the tiny seed companies, really fulfilling, very much like a side thing. But I don't know, like, you don't see a lot of founders that do something for 20 years. How do you think?
Not in technology, for sure. I mean, there are a lot I think you don't see, because generally a founder is going to stick for something a long time. They don't need to come and say, hey, I'm sticking with this thing for a long time. They just do the thing. Yeah. Like that satisfies them. I do get what you're saying, though. There have been times over the history of DNSimple where I'm like, do I really want to do this anymore? And so I might hack on for a while, I was like, do I want to deal with this tech? Oh, maybe I'll go hack on something. So I have a few little Raspberry Pis laying around. I was like, I'll play with Raspberry Pis for a while. Or I'll do home automation stuff for a while and I'll play around with this. But none of those things were interesting enough to draw me away from the fact that I have a viable business that sustains quite a few people in their lives and that our customers really love. And so I've started to sort of take the perspective that if I'm servicing our customers well and I can feel that they're happy, and I'm servicing our team well and I can feel that they're happy, that actually makes me very happy and it makes me satisfied to do what I'm doing. Does it mean that I'll be here forever? Undoubtedly, no. Eventually every business transitions, whether it's through passing on to the next family member, closing down, selling, it doesn't matter. Like, you will have an exit. There is an exit at the end of every business, right? So I'm cognizant of that. I just hope that I can do it on my terms, and one that will protect my interests, my family's interests, my customers' interests, and my team's interests. And if I can do that, then I'll say, okay, that was a good way of ending things on my part in those things. And of course, my hope is that some of the work that I've done over the 15 years will survive beyond me, because that's always a hope, right? But instead, now what I've figured out is I can start looking and do stuff that's more fun. Like, my wife and I have taken up dancing, right? So
cool.
So it's like, it has nothing to do with anything. We're just doing this, and we're kind of taking the same approach of having fun with it, but putting time into it and practicing. And it's like, music, if you're musically inclined, I'm going to go start learning the piano. If you want to do art, if you want to write a book, there's always other avenues that you can use. You don't necessarily have to start the next business unless you're really driven to, like, you see something that is wow, this is a business opportunity. I can't believe nobody else is touching this right now in my area. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. No, it's a healthy way to think about it. I think that for myself, at least, like, we have all this energy, and if there's not a outlet for that energy is when I struggle the most in this respect. Like, I have this energy. I needed to get out. I don't really think that spending 5 more hours a week on marketing is going to make a difference. The team is good. The product is good. I need an outlet. And so it's dancing, or I took up tennis this year, or just, go be a better parent to my kids, and husband to my wife. Like that's probably worthwhile too.
Yeah, no doubt tedium is the biggest enemy of most entrepreneurs' ability to focus.
Yeah.
And the ones I'm always impressed by the entrepreneurs that stick with it for a long time and build a significantly large business where that they have hundreds or thousands of people that depend on that business to keep going. There's a lot of tedium in there, and they get really good at hiring people to offload some of those things so that they can focus on whatever it is that makes the business the best it can possibly be, whether that's the next strategic agreement or the next merger and acquisition or whatever it might be. Like that to me is, I don't know. I still haven't decided if I can get to that point. Like I feel like maybe there's a ceiling to what I can run the business to before it's beyond me and what I feel comfortable with. But so far, every time I thought I've hit that ceiling, something has happened to let me move beyond that. And that's also something that's nice as a founder. Like it's not this. It's not this. It's kind of just like steps, right? And I'm okay with that. I've come to say this is a healthy way of doing business, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think like Jason Cohen's talked about, it's like these growth and just like for us or the business is like a series of incremental steps. And it looks kind of like a straight line, but it's really a bunch of jagged lines when you look closely.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. I'd love to just kind of like finish up by hearing, like how folks can get in touch with you,
sure.
what y'all do to help, folks with their DNS and their websites and everything.
Well, getting in touch with me is easy. I'm on LinkedIn as Anthony Eden or Aiden. I can't remember which one, but you can go look for me on LinkedIn. I go out to conferences a lot. So if you ever see me in person, I try to be a friendly person, come up and say hi, and we can just have a chat. They can reach me at anthony@DNSimple.com via email if there's something. Don't spam me though. I just want to say one thing I'm doing is I'm taking a very hard stance against unsolicited emails. And if you try to sell me something and it is not don't try in the first place. But if you really
just be on the safe side.
If you really insist, you better at least have an automated unsubscribe link that works immediately. Otherwise, you're going straight to spam. But if you want to reach out to me and just talk about things, I'm always happy to talk to folks, not just about DNS and domains, but also just about running a business, whatever they need help with. I'm a pretty open person. As far as the business, we still do what it says on the tin, right? We're going to keep working on making it so that DNS is automated so that we have less manual interaction and more part of your typical infrastructure. We've invested a lot of time in making things work with Terraform, for example. And we just keep focusing on the automation side of DNS and domains. And I don't really see anything changing. We like what we do as a business. We feel like we bring a lot of value to our customers, and it's just about getting the word out there and continuing to have people who aren't aware of us become aware of us and go, maybe there's another alternative to the big giants that are out there.
Yeah. Love it. Dude, great conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Craig. I appreciate it.